have your problems and the problems that bother you. And you might ask yourself, well, why do those problems bother you and not other problems? And I would say, maybe it's because in those problems you actually find your destiny. And those are often things you don't want to look at, like you didn't want to look at the poverty of your continent, and no bloody wonder, who wants to look at that? But it was something that bothered you. It turned out that was your problem. And if you faced it, well, then you figured out on that road that that was your destiny, properly thinking, properly speaking.
Yes, and it was not always easy for me to recognize that or to see it as clearly as I do today. But yes, if I did not follow that, if I did not pursue that question, I would not be sitting here talking to you right now, because there would be no reason for it. So there, with Criticize by Creating, turn this anger, energy into positive energy, into inspiration, then I'm starting to come back to life. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, if I've got a problem with this situation, I got to fix it myself. So I'm going to start a company. I'm going to start a brand. And we're going to sell it first in the US, because I'm going to do reverse colonialism on my people. If the only time they can respect something is if the West has said, oh, now we welcome it, then I'm going to trick you the same way, hoping that the next generation that comes after you, luckily for them, they won't need that type of validation, because they were born in a world in which they were just fine, in a world in which they were the it people, right? So, but this is a detour I need to take. Let's take it. So with that, I just became very galvanized. And so we started this business, and my whole thing was, I'm going to start a brand. I don't want to start an NGO telling people, you should respect Africans, or you should respect this ingredient, or these poor women are losing. No, build a brand, because brands have such a power to influence culture. And I was dealing here with a cultural issue first and foremost. And so build a company, hire people back home, and make the brand pop in the US. And then you have your virtuous circle where the jobs are created back home, and your culture also takes its rightful place at the table. And that's exactly that's exactly what we did. I started this company in my kitchen, and eventually, by the time you look around, you have on my board Roger Enrico, the ex-chairman of PepsiCo. You have a gentleman who started, Sobe, that was sold to Pepsi, and then also Odwalla, which was sold to Coca-Cola. So all of these who's who of the business of the beverage world were sitting at my table, helping me run this company. Again, something like this, I could never have done this if I was not in this country. So this is where we are now. But you know what, Jordan, then what happened there? I was starting to get my answers. Because as we built this company, the sister company was based in Senegal, and it was mostly for the supply chain side. And then another sister company was built in the US for more marketing, R&D, sales, and the sales channels. That's what the sister company was doing. And would you know that as I was building this company, at least back then, it would take you a quick 20 minutes, maybe faster, depending on how fast you type, to establish an LLC online. Compare that to the almost 2 years it took me to legally register the sister company in Senegal.
Right. So let's just focus on that for a minute. Okay. So you're comparing 20 minutes to 2 years. Right. So then you have to ask yourself, and I'm sure you have, is how much time and energy do people have? Like, it's not an easy thing to set up a business. It's a daring thing, and there's a tremendous amount of risk involved, and you'll probably fail. That's the risk side of it. Now, you might succeed beyond your wildest dreams, but if you exhaust all your hardworking and entrepreneurial people by forcing them to jump through idiot hoops nonstop, all that you do is keep people absolutely impoverished. And so we've got a key issue with regard to poverty right here, which is the presence of a stunning amount of unnecessary red tape. So how is it, do you think, that the US has managed to make it so that you can register a company in 20 minutes, whereas in Senegal, it takes 2 years? And he points out that in some of the so-called developing countries, especially the more corrupt ones, not only does it take multiple years to do anything at all legally, but by the time you jump through all the hoops to do it legally, the laws have been changed so that what you do is no longer valid.
That is absolutely the case. So you're asking me a very good question. And the way I will go about that is I'm going to try to take this opportunity to debunk a myth, because this whole conversation with you, I take it as my opportunity to debunk so many myths about African poverty. Hence, what would it take for to build African prosperity? Because I'm not interested in alleviating poverty. I'm not interested in just like, oh, can I be a little bit less poor? No, I want to be prosperous. I think my people,
right.
Human flourishing. To me, it starts and it ends with it. Human flourishing. Now, what it means for somebody to flourish, it's going to be up to them to decide. But should everybody have access to human flourishing? You betcha. So here, going back to the question and why the US and in Africa not, and then Hernando de Soto making the case that oftentimes corrupt countries make it so hard. So there, the myth that I debunk is so often, I talk to people and they're like, oh, Africa, these countries, this region is so corrupt. And I'm like, yes, my country might be corrupt, almost as bad as Chicago. But the way it manifests itself is different from place to place. And so I would like to argue on the order and the relationship between corruption and these laws that Hernando de Soto was talking about, the more they corrupt and the more you have to jump through hoops and everything. I like to argue that corruption is a cause of senseless laws, is a cause too many laws and also senseless laws. When you have those together, then you breed corruption. Give you an example. This is another example that we had to go through. My current company is a skincare company, Skin is Skin. So for that, we have to import some ingredients because if you don't have you need the inputs that you need at the standard of quality that you need them in order to remain competitive in your marketplace. My marketplace is the United States. That's where the people have the money to spend all of this, to spend on our products. They understand our products. This is it's one of the best markets for us for many different reasons. So it means that everything behind the scene has to be world class. The whole chain up and down has to be world class. And so ingredients, no different. So we have to bring in some ingredients. Well, guess what, Jordan? For some of my ingredients, the tariff is 45% to enter the country, 45%. Others, almost 70%. How do you expect me to be competitive if you're slapping such tariff on some of my inputs? How? Because for every 50 cents you add on tariffs, I have to sell my products $2 more than I would have in order for me to actually make it. I become very uncompetitive very quickly, quality for quality, product for product. So there we had to, so now, if instead of making it a 45%, how about maybe it's a 0% like it is in the US? If I had to bring the same product here in the US, 0% tariff on it.